two, 1, 2, 3.
There are books that are good, there are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all, 'cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
Welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television. Can you feel the chill of fall outside?
Can you feel the most sensual and most threatening of months creeping up upon you?
Some people like October, some people like December. For me, my favorite month is November. Not just because of the pumpkin spice, but also because it's the month where amateur writers come together to exhibit their incompetence in breathtaking fashion with something that the internet has deemed NaNoWriMo.
NaNoWriMo.
NaNoWriMo-less?
NaNoWriMo.
We did that joke like 2 weeks ago.
I
and it bombed.
know, and then I just completely stumbled over it. So, rewind that and scratch it. This is National Novel Writing Month, and we have kicked it off in the only appropriate way by allowing you, the heroes, the friends of the show, to inflict your best bad writing upon us. So we have a little contest. We're going to read all the entries.
Yeah, for those who haven't been following along, we've been talking about a contest where we asked our listeners to send in some examples of their bad writing.
Yeah.
We said a paragraph, but obviously we're pretty flexible with that,
Right.
as you will see moving forward. But there were so many good entries that instead of just picking a couple winners, we decided we were going to give you, the listeners, an entire bonus episode of nothing but these amazingly bad/good attempts at like curdling your entire appreciation of literature.
It's going to run the gamut. There are legit entries that people did for NaNoWriMo in years past.
Ooh, that's good.
Sonic is here.
Oh, that's even better.
Is there a vampire? Yes.
Several.
Is there some painful self-insert writing? Is there writing about writing? Anyway, without further ado, let's just do this shit.
Yeah. Like we said, here are your submissions for our 2016 NaNoWriMo Worst Paragraph Contest.
This is all your fault.
This is by Saul, fake last name. I read a lot of indie horror. It's not easy being dead. At least that's what I imagine. I'm not actually dead myself, except inside. Inside, I'm a graveyard. A pile of rotting corpses that squirm with maggots and the stench of death. Sometimes when I burp, I imagine the swamp gas of their rotting miasma is pushing itself up my throat, impatient to be free. But it isn't. It's just gas. I shake my head impatiently and fire up the Harley. Time to go to work. Great job, Saul.
This is from Alex, fake last name. Hello, my name is Rita Flamedark, and I'm a private investigator. I investigate paranormal crimes with ghosts, etc. Like this one time, a ghost was in a house and he murdered this guy with blood on the floor. Then he murdered 10 guys with even more blood. It was a nice day, though, because took my magical New Orleans Santeria revolver and I shot that ghost in the wee-wee, and he was like, ouchie, my dick. The ghost had a magical ring on him. Hat let me shoot fire once per day. I took it. It's mine now. One of the people who died was my mom, and now she's a ghost and she helps me fight ghost crime. Welcome to my adventure.
This is Ryan, fake last name, with the postscript. I hate this. I hate this so much. Enjoy if you can. I'm sorry. There's a certain amount of trepidation involved when one decides, with what little free time he has available to him in this worrisome world of identity politics and false dichotomies, to put to paper with his pen a narrative, especially, as is so often the case, when that narrative draws too faithfully to the oldest narrative traditions of human culture and provides a structure which the progressive will almost invariably dismiss as homogenist or misogynistic. As if such social phenomenon were not only the basis of modern society, but also, despite what the progressive will have you believe, a lens of reality that pierces the shallow veils of modern political correctness and self-aggrandizing delusion that so often plagues the people who most frequently discuss, evaluate, and, ostensibly, enjoy the craft of words and wit we hold so near and dear to our hearts. However, there is a saying that gratefully inspires me when I spend too long contemplating this landscape which now plagues my craft. He who hesitates is lost. Simple, profound, and truer than anything I heard in college. And so I come to you this day to discuss a topic that may very well be too intellectual and too nuanced for some of you to accept. I hope dearly that you do not channel that ignorance into aggression, for that you will yield you little good here. I will suffer no responses that carry the stretch of that vile ichor called immaturity. If you are offended, good. Maybe it will prompt a thought or two with which you can consider for a moment why you feel the way you do about this issue. I apologize for the wait. I have for most of my life been known to be long of word. And so, without further ado, on the following page you will find my latest review in which I give a dissection of both public and critical response to what is one of my favorite and cruelly underrated films, Zack Snyder's 2011 masterpiece, Sucker Punch.
We turn it up in the headphones? Yeah. It's from Jordan, fake last name. This is an excerpt from Alamo 2000. Revving the handlebars in my 2009 Kawasaki Ninja Segway, we were off. Him on his lame hover board, it doesn't fucking fly, and me on the Ninja, racing for dominance. Cage Bradshaw, you're going down, I yelled at the punk, still arrogant from the win over my son, who sadly died in the race. That's what you think, Davy Crockett. You can't fool me. I know you were resurrected from the dead to kill my girlfriend. It was at this point I stopped dead in my tracks. After noticing my brakes, Bradshaw turned around to face me. Cage, I said, tears rolling down my cheeks. We've both lost somebody. Let us put this violence to an end. Bradshaw came over and put his hand on my shoulder, and we cried over our respective losses. War is hell.
Jordan, fake last name. You are now reading an excerpt from Bolus, Straight Talk from a Hard Man by Sergeant Jerry Rockman, Stonewater, 12th degree black belt.
Whoa.
The Philadelphia Parking Authority is the worst collection of mouth-breathing dimbacks I have ever seen, and my friends, I have seen a lot. My military special ops Delta Squad service has taken me across the globe into dangerous unknown territory at the mercy of merciless terrorists. It has also allowed me the opportunity to have a lot of sex. While many different women. With many different women. But as dumb as those women are, they are half as dumb as the Philadelphia Parking Authority is. The bleeding hearts of the PPA wouldn't last a day against El Chapo. I'm not paying for this fucking ticket. You hear me, PPA? I'm not paying, and neither should you.
This is a little joint from Ross, fake last name, from a piece called Try Triple Crown. Not now. I'm so close, she gasped.
Oh, dear.
Carol caressed her swollen belly, took long, controlled breaths, and thought about what had got her here. Darren, her first, got her the second leg, and Tara was barely far enough along to qualify her for the first. She had reached the most difficult leg, and with the final match looming, little Ezra was threatening to arrive too early and jeopardize everything. She could not let that happen. She was going to be the first woman ever to win the trimester triple crown of the World Pregnant Arm Wrestling Championship. She wasn't going to have her water break at the last minute and ruin her legacy. She was going to be a goddamned legend. The sensation subsided. Carol took in a deep breath and exhaled slowly. "Just hang in there for a little longer, Pumpkin," she whispered as she taped up her wrestling hand.
All right, this is by Adam, fake last name, A Tale of Unbridled Passion. She whooped the belt off my corduroy cargoes like a lion taming Indiana Jones. But she was a total sexy lady and not a grandpa wearing a totally fucking sick trilby. And the only circus she would be in was a sexy backup dancer on Kiss's Psycho Circus tour. Nice. Wow, your dick is way cooler than my very popular boyfriend Motocross Travis Pastrana's penis, she gasped as my cords hit the floor. My vape rig thudding heavily against the tile, popping out and blasting a little Baja Blast flavored juice on her super cool boobs. And you vape? Who knew my first cousin could be so hot? This was gonna be the best Christmas ever.
This is from Haboism, fake last name. Funny story, on the way to the pub, I accidentally left my laptop in 1994, and when I got back, it had a virus on it that replaced every text file on it with this. Maybe you can make some sense of it? I think it might be an ancient Babylonian spell. Naturally, I had not expected that a black hat of your level would not reveal his secrets without a lack of resistance, Oberon stated grimly, as Zero struggled to move his wrists against the duct tape lashing him to the bench. It was a pity, he thought, that even in this brave new world of super surfable info highs, the world's greatest keyboard warrior could be brought down with something too dumb and analog to hack. An ample-bosomed, red-haired nurse entered, carrying a briefcase. Zero attempted to catch her eye. She snapped open its latches and lifted the lid, revealing a well-cushioned syringe. The telltale glow gave the identity of the substance away. Zero thanked whatever deity that had not yet abandoned him, that his experience as a cyber poker tournament champ opposite Japanese salarymen had taught him to disguise the mortal fear that would have shown on the face of any lesser man. The drug, codenamed Liquid Kremlin, that had been widely available on various extreme darknet websites since the walls collapsed. Back in the days when kidnapping American scientists was all the rage, a team of U.S. pharmacologists were forced at the points of the hammer and sickle to create a drug so addicting that merely a droplet could turn an elephant into an addict slave incapable of resisting the allure of communism. You would not find its molecule in any conventional database. It was a cut-and-shut combination of the molecules of the two most deadly drugs of any mean American city street: marijuana, deified by its junkie lovers as the seductive Mary Jane, and cannabis.
This one is by Jokerin, fake last name. A job is a job, Shane thought to himself as he put on his hard hat and got ready for a long day. He had missed applying for homeopathy college course again. Maybe next year. Inside the large, boisterous factory, many workers just like him milled around, their big pharma-branded gas masks hiding all their facial features. They looked like an army of zombies. That morning, Shane had forgotten his after wasting 2 hours hunting down pure raw almond milk for his morning detox routine, but he figured it wouldn't really matter as long as he was careful. Unluckily enough, that morning he had the unpleasant task of cleaning the large chimneys that were becoming clogged and releasing fumes into the factory. He mentally kicked himself for forgetting his gas mask, but there was nothing to do about it now, so he made his way up the chimney, which took almost half an hour of endless stairs. By the time he got to the top, he was gasping, and the sun was relentlessly beating down his back. He inhaled loudly, and a cold shiver ran down his back when he sniffed the unmistakable putrid smell of the fumes. It felt like being punched straight in the face, and he began gagging so hard he fell down on his knees, but it passed surprisingly quickly. Covered in sweat, his knees shaking, he held onto the banister and slowly lifted himself up, and suddenly he felt a rush of adrenaline run down his veins like electricity. He looked up at the sky, which was quickly forming a sickly, sickening gray, feeling as if he was seeing the world for the first time. As the sun faded behind the clouds, he realized a veil had been lifted. The iron grip of false reality had loosened. It was no wonder they were so adamant about workers wearing their gas masks so they wouldn't breathe the fumes of truth. He took a deep breath and muttered, "Vaccines cause autism."
So this is from No Name, Fake Last Name, and it's called Eli Roth's Terror Tram at Universal. So the visionary horror director Eli Roth has a ride at Universal Studios Haunted Horror Night. You wait for an hour to get on a cart that dumps you off in a back lot near the Universal Studios dumpsters. Once there, you walk through a maze of shitty clowns trying their hardest to shake tomato cans filled with rocks. For fuck's sake, there's no fake blood or guts anywhere. Once you get to the end, which takes like 5 minutes at most, they throw you on another tram and dump you back at the front. No reach around and no goodnight kisses. If I paid $90 to get scared, I better fucking get stabbed by the end of the night. Fuck you, Eli Roth. Your ride sucked, and your movies don't even deserve to be on the Sci-If channel.
This is by Fletcher Fake Last Name. "Curse this human penis!" Zythar screamed, their pants tightening the same way as a face grimaced. "How is it that you can function in this form? Allow me to maleomorph my No! No means no! You wanted to know how the other side lived, and you're going to learn," came Shanae's reply. Besides, she thought, I don't know if we can undo this mind transfer before 38 hours have passed.
All right, this is from Ike, Fake Last Name. "You're out of your league, Mr. Speed Masters," said Vicious Vile, hanging on with one hand to the door of his jet-black helicopter. In his other hand, he clutched Speed Master's precious target, the briefcase, the epicenter of his mission, black as the darkest night and gleaming in the ebony obsidian pitch of the New York skyline. A wry grin disrupted the chiseled jaw of Speed Masters, his perfect ivory incisors sparkling in the intense flood of rainbow light from the melange of neon lights emanating from below. Blinding in their intensity, but somehow murky and piteous when compared to the sparkle in Speed Master's orbitals, which had morphed from their usual icy cerulean to a deep, striking, subtle, intense, spine-tingling violet red. Even their characteristic flecks of gold, which shone the brightest when Speed Masters was making love or scoring the winning goal in his beloved game of field hockey, had vanished entirely. "I think you'll find," said Speed Masters in his most muscular voice, "that your league has folded." Just as the helicopter began to lift off, Speed Masters clutched a nearby length of pipe, flexing his powerful, rippling biceps to tear it free from the rooftop. In a single motion, he retrieved his precious talisman from his pocket, his lucky field hockey ball, which he named Cynthia, after his beloved fiancée, who was killed by vampire mobsters on the day of their wedding. Speed Masters whispered a final silent goodbye to her as he threw the ball into the air and slammed it with strapping and sinewy might directly at Vile's hand. With a sickening thud that echoed throughout the city for a brief moment, the ball made hard contact with Vile's twisted hand. He screamed girlishly in anger. The ink-like briefcase fell from his hand through the starless Stygian night, where Speed Masters was waiting with open arms. The ball made a hard roll on Vile's knuckle and arced directly to impact his remaining testicle. He fell from the helicopter, flailing his arms and legs in exaggerated and comical circles, disappearing into the raven-sable darkness of the crowded city streets. And Cynthia with him. Speedmaster sighed and looked at the charcoal briefcase in his arms. "Let's see what's so damned important about this." He cracked it open. It contained a single piece of paper. Speedmaster looked at it quizzically in the soft white moonlight and handsomely chuckled. "Of course. Now it all makes sense." Speedmaster slowly closed the briefcase, pausing just long enough that a small sliver of moonlight rested on these words. Birth certificate, Barack Obama. Date of birth, August 4, 1961. Country of origin, Kenya.
All right, Kara, fake last name. Grom Beefback began to put on his new superhero outfit. It was green latex that was carefully hand-sewn with the stitching along the inside of the arms and thighs so that it wasn't showing on the outside because that would have made it look really bad. It had a kind of shine to it, but it wasn't too shiny, not like gleaming or anything, just a pleasant sort of reflection of the light. It had his superhero logo on it, which was a circle that wasn't quite white, but rather was off-white, sort of like a cream color, but it was less creamy and more sort of lemon. And on the circle there was this... there was a hair to represent how fast he could move because of his super speed that he trained for years with, honing his skills with the toughest and most unrelenting of masters to try and coax the powers out of him. They made him wake at sunrise every day without fail and beat on him and made him practice his powers until little by little he became better, beating out all his contenders with his skills. He became a brutal sort of warrior, and this was represented by the hair on his chest. The hair was purple and had green eyes just like Grom. Grom had crystalline green eyes that shone out from behind his mask. He got the mask at Walmart during Halloween.
All right, this is from Dale, fake last name.
This one is great.
Troncoso's unit was big. Really big. Not in a kielbasa you buy from the deli way, but definitely sizable. Well, not from the supermarket deli anyway, perhaps one of those corner delis that they have in the more ethnic suburbs of Chicago. They'd have a kielbasa a bit bigger than his unit, but probably not the supermarket. There was a great deli on the corner of 5th and Weston. They had great kielbasa. Their niches were pretty good too. The owner there was a great old mustachioed guy, liked to give a little on the side, if you know what I mean. He had long knishes and good kielbasa. Oh, and by unit, I mean penis. I never saw it, but I heard stories.
Jork, fake last name? Probably fake first name too, I don't know.
What?
Diplod slid his forehead along the wall until one of his eyes could see what he could clearly smell and hear. His body softened a bit. Seeing the way that their bodies had coiled together, bones and ligaments loosening to allow for best access, they formed a long, squat, amorphous tube of flesh that rolled this way and that, bumping the chrome legs of tables and chairs pushed hastily aside to make room for their multiple couplings. His one eye open, the other lightly closed, one hand gripped the jamb, the other slid flat and damp across the cool green surface of the wall and down. His joints loosened, and he needed to sit down before he fell down. He thought if he could tear his eyes away from the writhing bodies before him, bear to tilt his face downward to perceive the pulsing, wobbling flesh of his traitorous body, steam rolling off of his body might blind him. He imagined himself there, in the midst of those bodies, included with his own people as never before. Wow, that was intense.
This is from Scott, fake last name. One day, I was in the coffee shop and the barista said, "Here's your Americano with Splenda." And she smiled like an ancient queen or maybe a pope's sister. She had eyes like big ruby almonds and blonde hair that frizzed into a dense, appealing ball. She said, "You look full of energy, even before your coffee. What's your secret?" And I said, "I recently made a big change in my life and got in touch with my inner spirit. It's something a lot of people don't do nowadays. I pity them." Sharon looked at me with approval and gave me her phone number. Later, we went on a date. Then we had a second date. And she said, "I think I'm falling for you." I flashed my best grin and said, "Hell yeah, you are, baby," and kissed her. It was like fireworks.
This is Katie, fake last name. And then it happened, the moment that changed my life forever. As I was avoiding a puddle in the sidewalk that looked like that hack Freddy's ugly face, a huge glob of black and white slime fell from the sky and landed squarely on the top of my head with a sickening splat. On instinct, I reached up with my hand to touch the sludge. My hand immediately began to tingle. Right before my eyes, I watched my fingers morph into talons, thick black hooks of keratin jutting from the ends of my arms. The tingling was spreading along my face and shoulders. I ran to one of the abandoned buildings that littered the road to get a look at my reflection in the broken window. My hair and ears had dissolved away, leaving behind smooth skin. My face was hardened, more defined, and my beard had grown to a gnarly 3-foot mass of wretched fur. I tore the clothes from my body to reveal bulbous, hardened muscle, decorated with a patchwork of tattoos. I gave the wings that had sprung from my shoulder blades a mighty flap and rose 50 feet into the air. Hovering above the city, I raised my arms and threw my head back, releasing an echoing, demonic laugh. I had become a god! Time for me to exact my revenge on the entire state of Wyoming.
All right, this is from General Fake Last Name. The planet was cluttered with emptiness. I shrugged non-committally at the sight. The trip through link space went flawlessly. I am very good at my job. 10 steps ahead of me, the beacon beeped rhythmically and out of phase. It only took a few minutes to reach it and see what the problem was. I expected a simple repair job, but was prepared for anything, like I always am. As I came around the side, I heard a second noise, a familiar noise, a foreign noise. A woman was working on the beacon before I got here. She pulled her scarf down to reveal a feminine, womanly face. Maybe there was one thing I wasn't prepared for.
Cough MBL fake last name. All right, dog. Call paced around the airport conference room. The dozen hastily gathered leaders stood by the wall waiting for him to begin. Let me tell you something. We're on the brink of an unprecedented disaster. Paranoia and doom are flooding the streets. I see what's happening here. People are being left behind for dead like animals on a killing floor. They're fleeing like rats on the Titanic. Ooh, rats on the Titanic. Leaving behind their scruples to abandon ship. And they still don't know the real truth. The hardcore truth. If they only knew what Michelle remembers. Oh man, I like this. The governor touched the scar tissue on her face and flinched, thinking back to the massacre in The Pines. Carl spun around to the window and pointed up to the slowly shrinking ball of light. That's no moon and no shadow moon. That is the hammer of the gods, leading an armada of punishment towards the fractured earth. With a burst of energy, he ripped a calendar from the wall and slammed it onto the table. June 20th, the first night of the crabs, / the last night for humanity. Holy shit.
That's amazing.
Yes, great job.
All right, this joint is brought to us by Simon, fake last name. Dr. Robotnik's extreme death ray throbbed with the power of the Chaos Emeralds. Die, Judas! He ejaculated as the laser burst out of his mighty machine. Sonic used the last bit of strength left in his body to dive in front of Judas. The laser hit him with the force of 1,000 high school jocks, sending his last ring flying. Sonic fell on his side, lifeless, as his ring bounced around, before settling a few inches above his head. Well, he can't save you now, Dr. Robotnik said, walking towards Judas, wiggling his fingers threateningly. He stopped on the way and gasped, as if, all of a sudden, Sonic's lifeless body began glowing with a heavenly light. As his fur turned to a bright yellow-golden color, Sonic opened his eye and started floating. He stood up with his arms spread, his last ring still hovering a few inches above his head. Jesus Christ! Robotnik exclaimed as he turned his flying machine around and flew away as fast as he could. Go, evil man! I forgive you, Sonic shouted. But if I ever catch you again, you're gonna need a miracle. Thank you, Sonic, Judas said, still shaking. So what should we do now? There are more creatures trapped on the other side of the desert. I have to go save them. Don't go, Judas implored beggingly. It will take you at least 40 days to cross that desert on foot. There's nothing to eat there. You will die of hunger. I have to go. It's in my nature. I gotta go fast.
All right, this is by Danica, fake last name. Our Winds of Winter. George R.R. Martin whistled and whined as he was rolled gently for 90 minutes in a batter of poppy seeds, butter, cinnamon, 1/2 tablespoon salt, 2 teaspoons olive oil or substitute. Place George R.R. Martin in the oven for 240 minutes or until golden brown. When his body hairs coil and the body batter crepe has bake holes from heat and the hairs come out through it, he is ready to write his book, but also to be diced up and served to a delighted brunch party at your local country club.
This is from Kevin, fake last name, and is entitled Circa 2005 Actual NaNoWriMo. I don't know, man. It seems like I'm the only one out of all of us who hasn't, fundamentally changed who I am. I guess I changed by not changing, stealing the line directly from a Pearl Jam song, hoping Kennedy hadn't heard it. And that makes me the odd man out sometimes. It makes times like this hard when I have to be around all these people who I, to be honest, don't know anymore. He reached into the open pack of Marlboro Mediums on the table next to him, pulling out the one that appeared to be packed the best, hoping for the best flavor of cancer, and lit it, drawing 2 brief puffs of smoke from it before putting it down to finish his sandwich. Kennedy appeared to be taking his time preparing a response, his mouth curling into a deep though pucker, and his eyes beginning to glaze over a bit as 2 different scents of smoke drifted up between them.
This is by Jeff, fake last name. John Rambo shouldered his compound bow close before hunkering down deep behind a mossy boulder. The scent alone was heavy in the damp air. He never thought he'd find himself here, engaging in counter-terror operations in the middle of the Scottish Highlands. But the top brass said he was the only man who could find the source and mission of the robed individuals who had been popping up all over England since last year. John Rambo slithered over to the boulder, peering at the castle partially hidden in the early morning fog. The intel indicated that this was a major training center for those individuals. It was his job to find these cultists, these potential terrorists, and bring their whole operation down if necessary. Suddenly there was a sound behind him. On instinct, John Rambo whirled to meet it, rocking an arrow with whip-like precision. Knocking an arrow, pardon me. A young man spoke. Petrificus totalis. John Rambo froze in place like a statue. Before him was a trio. One woman with wild curly brown hair, one with a freckle face and ginger hair, and one who was undoubtedly their leader. He peered at John Rambo through his glasses before idly scratching a strange lightning bolt-shaped scar on his forehead. Welcome to Hogwarts.
All right, this is from Louisa, fake last name. It was just a day like any other. Blythe and Kyle got out of bed with a stretch and a yawn and lithely slid into a black t-shirt. No pants. The pants could come later. He freeballed his way to the kitchen, like always, admiring the shadows his length cast on the gleaming aluminum walls. Well, it looks like the Jelkwing's working, he growled appreciatively. A pang of hunger caused him to reach for his steel hand churn. His lats rippled and crunched as he mixed his all-complete tactical military-issued protein-enhanced Nutrimax breakfast paste. A primal smear of avocado completed the optimal repast, which he ate on his balcony, one-handed, off the tip of his buck knife. The other hand was otherwise engaged. Grunting as he finished, Blathen shrugged on his activewear pants and left a note for Mariana. Last time she hadn't let the toilet seat up when she'd finished cleaning it. And she knew that was how Blathen needed it to be. He'd briefly considered replacing her, but then he remembered how tedious it had been to get keys cut and fill out the necessary forms he supposed he had to fill out, so he decided he could let it slide this time. On his way to work, Blathen decided to stop for coffee, pulling up his bike outside Wiggle Fortis Grind, a coffee shop the guys at the office had told him about. Walking inside, he was gratified to find Brian sitting there reading. He hadn't seen Brian since he'd come out to the guys at drinks on Friday, and hadn't had a chance to let him know that they were still cool. Gay guys didn't bother him. They seemed to be doing pretty well in San Fran, anyway, always picking up. And Brian, with his carefully trimmed beard and Warby Parker glasses and warm brown eyes, he was going to be just fine. "Hey, Bry," said Brathen, nodding to the barista. "Ristretto." Hi, Blathen," said Brian. He seemed a little bit worried, to be honest. Blathen couldn't work out why. Shit. Was this about the whole gay thing? Frowning, Blathen noticed with distaste that Brian was drinking a chai latte. Ugh. Why didn't he just go to Starbucks while he was at it? The guy would be eating pumpkin spice donuts at this rate and losing that taut, hard body Blathen had seen displayed at full advantage last time the team had gone for bicycle polo. "Don't worry," Blathen said heartily, giving Brian a friendly punch on the shoulder. "If you're into me, that's cool. I mean, I'm straight. But I'm not, upset or anything if you are. Hell, I might even let you blow me."
All right, Michelle, fake last name, Legendary Suitors, a dystopian fantasy reality show romance series.
Ooh, my favorite word there? Series.
Sarah Pathia stared out the window and sighed as her lavender locks fluttered in the truculent breeze. The flags on the castle tower around her were positively tumescent, with the wind's florid redolence. Alas, she moaned, if only I wasn't trapped here. Her plaintive ejaculation was devoured by the tumorous, extrascent cameras focused on her window. Below her, a squadron of myogenic supplicants waited, swains both strong and handsome, hoping for either her love or victory in simulated combat upon the robotic dragon steeds in the ring. It was the beginning of a new season of Legendary Suitors, and Sarah Pathia simpered for the benefit of both the men and the cameras, mentally accounting for the advertisement revenue that her designer earrings would accrue during each minute of airtime. It was going to be a great episode.
All right, this is from Flying Zamboni 2, fake last name. Definitely had to make sure that there's a fake last name in there so that we can't find and stalk Flying Zamboni 2. Runs a little something like this. Professor Chad Zandersby opened his grandfather's diary and began to feverishly compare its contents to what was written on the brittle scroll rolled out in front of him. He knew the answers he'd been looking for were somewhere in the diary's pages, but it wasn't until he saw the intricate diagram on the ancient scroll that it all finally clicked into place. He turned to Susan. "It's here! It's all here! When you arrange the names for my grandfather's research according to the diagram in this configuration," he hastily wrote out the names: Rita, Tina, Erica, Monica, Jessica, Sandra, and Mary, over a sketch of the diagram and held it up, "and overlay this over a map of Europe, then it becomes obvious that each name corresponds with a major city. When you draw lines connect each name, you can see that they all intersect at this city." "My God!" exclaimed Susan. "That's right. Lou Bega was trying to tell us all along. Mambo number 6 is hidden somewhere in Paris."
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mambo number 5.
This is Pete, fake last name. This is 2 first lines. We'll start here with A. The muzzle velocity of a 204 Ruger is 1,200 meters per second. Stick a human body in the way and that figure starts to tumble rapidly. Benny Lopez flipped up his custom sights and took a deep breath. He was a man with a lot of subtraction in his past. Holy shit. And here is B, which is almost better. Allow me to compose myself. The room was wall-to-wall balls.
Oh, come on, you could.
Okay.
All right, guys, get your ringtones ready.
Okay. The room was wall-to-wall balls.
Okay, this is from Jen and Dave, fake last name, and is an attempt to bring a little bit of gritty realism to a Wild Animus style story.
Oh, good.
It's as gray as the decades-old gym socks haunting the corner of his sock drawer, and cold as cold Asian noodle salad, and twice as damp. He's alone in the dark in his merino wool underwear and socks. Fucking at me, though. for weeks, when he was alone in the dark, seriously, at me, he would think of the stony-hearted north slope of the Brooks Range. He's been stalking him for months, driving hours from his home just to catch a glimpse of him in his. He caresses his stainless steel bolt-action .300 Winchester Magnum rifle, just like the United States Marine Corps snipers use. Its synthetic stock resists the weather's relentless urges to warp it and change the barrel harmonics. Just after dawn, he looks through the black 4x12 scope mounted on top, torqued down to 20-inch pounds. He thinks of the coming moment of the kill and the delicious flavor of the sinewy flesh. As his finger moves to take up the slack on the two-stage trigger, he mutters softly what he thinks is Plato. Like sands through the hourglass, these are the days of our lives, and the last day of his. He feels the recoil, hears the deafening explosion ripping through the pristine morning, and smells the smokeless powder propelling the 220-grain bullet with 5,300 joules of energy, enough to light a shitty CFL bulb for 203 seconds. He was only 11 years old when he lay dying on the ground in the only place he knew as home, dimly aware of the outside world as his life drained into the rough-hewn shoulders of the mighty Brooks Range. As doll sheep go, he's bigger than most, and he's dragged the old pineapple through numerous ladies. His horns might be displayed on knotty pine in a rumpus room in Homer, but his majestic spirit would live on in his many offspring. But that's a story for another day.
All right, Rose, fake last name, an excerpt from Frenzy, the one with the apocalypse. An inhuman screech echoed down the corridor. Inside the dimly lit apartment, two women huddled, trembling at the edge of the couch. At the far end of the living room, a third woman strummed a guitar. She glanced up at the noise, but her face remained serene, framed by a fall of long golden hair. From the couch, one of the terrified women whimpered, "What if he doesn't come back?" Before her sofa-bound companion could utter a word of comfort, an eardrum-shattering crack exploded against the living room's plate glass window, followed by a savage howl of outrage. The blonde woman set her guitar aside and stood to get a better look, while her terrified compatriots shrieked and clutched each other tightly. "Wow," remarked the blonde after a moment. "I think that was the guy from across the street." Her dark-haired peer glared incredulously. "Why on earth do you think that?" "Well, if we see another zombie wandering around naked except for bunny slippers, I'll take it back," quipped the blonde. "Phoebe," sighed the brunette with exasperation. "Wait, are you serious?" Suddenly, the front door of the apartment burst open. A man in a tweed jacket slipped in and slammed the door shut, collapsing against it. The tearful woman sprang from the couch and flew into his arms, weeping. "I'm back," panted the man, stroking the woman's hair lovingly and perhaps a bit awkwardly. "But I could only find ground coffee. All the whole bean is looted already." Rach, don't. It was too late." The woman's terror and disbelief overcame her and left her racked with sobs. The blonde lifted her head quizzically. "Ross, has anyone ever told you you're the worst?" she asked pleasantly.
All right, this is from Mike, fake last name. Commander Kyung Min's Rodriguez field of vision exploded into an irregular spiral galaxy of pain stars as the tungsten-jacketed grav round grazed his ulna, the kinetic energy shredding the delicate bone into a fine proteinaceous slurry that, he mused darkly as the momentum sent him pinwheeling down the access corridor, would have fetched half an Earthweek's salary in his old job as a black market fertilizer dealer in the weed colonies of Phobos. The cacophony around him, the decompression klaxons, the cheery, opioids-depleted warnings from his Wong-corped Versa suit, the white noise of the Geiger counter, the sickening pop-pop-pop of tendons untethering from his skeleton like ancient metal bridge supports pinging off in a hurricane, was broken by a screech of inhuman rage from the spinward corridor. Linda. Her last shot hadn't killed Rodriguez, and she'd seen the radiological alarm. Maybe she had even figured out that it was coming from the rice grain-sized antiproton capsule that Dr. Forsyth had implanted in his engorged prostate. It didn't matter now. As the supermassive black hole of agony engulfed the last of his being, through lips flecked with blood and foam, Rodriguez gave a grim smile and began the detonation kegels.
Basingstoke. The word came to him like the strangled cry of a primordial beast led to senseless slaughter. Basingstoke. He thought he had left that place behind more than a sad, empty decade ago, along with the memory of her moon-pale fingers, gentle on his sweating neck. Her silken voice soft on the fleshy corpuscles of his ear, the smooth curve of her neck bent away in revulsion or maidenly restraint, which he did not know. He had never been good enough for her, and neither had Basingstoke, the city they both loved and hated. Oh, what irony that Basingstoke should now be the key to his salvation, its soulless streets reaching out to him, wrapping their diseased tendrils around his quivering soul, and he knew those fleshy tentacles were hiding within their organic crevices barbed hooks, strong enough to rend flesh, waiting to draw him in once more, and squeeze the sickly sweet twin oozes of want and hope from the remnants of his own most pustulant sore of a soul. No, as long as he had any life in him, he would not go back.
Wow. All right. Thanks, everybody. That was a shit ton of entries for the NaNoWriMo IDEOTVPod contest. Thank you all so much. If you've made it to the end of this, you are a different person than you were about an hour ago, and we could not commend you more for it.
Yeah, so on our next episode, we'll be announcing the winners. We're going to have two favorites, and the grand prize will be that I will write an awesome song about your winning entry. So, pardon me. The grand prize will be that I will write an awesome song about your winning entry and send it to you. And you can do whatever you want with it. You can pretend I'm Carl Castle and put it on your answering machine. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. This has been a bonus episode. Yada, yada, you know what to do. I don't even own television. Hooray!
Ride the crab.